Hello and welcome to your third tutorial on JQuery. Today we'll talk about animation. And as you see, I've already started. I've made a div with the class of D1, and using CSS I've given it width, height, background, font size, color and its position. So to begin with our animation tutorial, we're going to be using the JQuery animate method, which will let us create custom animations. And so what we're going to do is we're going to select our D1 class div, and for the method we're going to write animate. And inside of our animate method, using the animation method, let's change the left and top values. So for left we're going to write 20 VW, and we're going to write a comma, as we're going to write something else as well, so another property, and we'll also put it as the same thing. Now if we go ahead and save and refresh, we see that it will move to the left and from the top 20 viewport widths, so it comes here from its starting point. As we see, it happens really fast, so we can easily just change its time by doing this and typing in 4000, which is the millisecond. So it will happen during 4 milliseconds, and as we see, it's very slower than the other one. And so let's add some other properties to animate. So we're going to write a comma, and to continue let's go ahead and add its width and height. So for width, let's make it bigger. So the div width is 25 and so is the height, and let's change it to, let's say, 35 VW and comma, and we're going to write height as well, 35 VH, as it is height. So as we see, we made it bigger by 10 points, let's say. And if I go ahead and save and refresh, look carefully at the div, and so as we see, the div actually got bigger by 10 values from the width and the height. We can also add another property, which is opacity, and its value can be 0.5. If we save and refresh, we see that by the time it gets to its position, it gets a little bit more transparent, so half of its actual value. If I put it to 0.1 and save and refresh, we're going to see that it completely disappears. However, we can still sort of see it. And we can also just end it with a 0, so it will completely disappear and we won't see anything, just like this. And let's continue with this animation. However, let's add a button, so the animation should happen in the case of a button click. So in our HTML code, let's go ahead and type in button, and let's just write animation. Close your button like this. Then let's make it work during our button click, for which we have to add the button selector. So button and its action, which is going to be click, and we're going to open a function right here like this, and let's put its ending brackets and curly braces right here. And so as the selector is button, any buttons on our page will get this code working. So let's go ahead and save and refresh, and as we see, when I refresh, nothing happened. However, if I click on my button, we see that our animation will work. And let me change this to 0.5. Here it is one more time. And so we see that the div's position, the starting point, is 0, 0. So let's go ahead and change this using CSS. So inside, let's go ahead and give it its starting position, so 10 VW, and from the top 10 VH, so the starting values, just like this. Let's also change its time, save and refresh, and now it will work a lot faster. And so we're going to do something else with the width and height values. So instead of writing 35 VH, let's go ahead and type in a plus sign and a equals sign. Let's do the same thing for height as well, and I will explain this when we see it. So if I click on my animation, we see that it works perfectly fine. And so what we basically did here is through the plus and equal symbols, we're basically adding 5 points to this starting value. So to 25 we're adding a 5 for width, and for height we're doing the same thing, so 5 more additional points are added. And if I click on it one more time, we see it gets a little bit bigger, and it just keeps going however many times I click it. So the width and height gets increased by 5 additional points every time we click on the button. So to sum up, we're adding 5 values to the starting value. We can also see that when we're clicking on our button, the text size is staying the same, so we can easily go ahead and change the text size as well. What we do, we type in font size, and as we see, it is a little bit different from this font size. It does not have a line in the middle, and the S has to be a capital. So for font size, let's go ahead and type in plus and equals 1 VW, and right here we have to put a colon. And now if I go ahead and save, refresh, pay attention to the text, we see that the text gets bigger by every click, and it only gets added by 1 as we put 1 right here. Let's also just go ahead and comment on opacity like this. It's kind of useless now. And if I click on my button, we're going to see our results like this. So both our text and div are getting bigger at the same time. Next, let's just go ahead and comment on this as well. So the code inside of animate like this, and we can go ahead and type in height, and height value can be toggle. Now let's save this and refresh. We're gonna see that our div basically slides up and down, so it sort of disappears in the span of 1 second, as 1000 milliseconds is set right here. I can change it to, let's say, 2 seconds. We'll see the difference, it's much slower. Now to move on, let's go ahead and create another button. So we can just duplicate this, and in button let's go ahead and add IDs. So for the first one, let's write B1, and for our second ID, let's go ahead and type in B2. Let's also change the text. So for B2, go ahead and type in stop animation, and let's go ahead and change this selector to a hashtag B1. Make some space right here, and we're gonna write JQuery code for B2 as well. Go ahead and copy and paste right here, and we're going to change the selector to B2. Inside of our B2 button, we're going to write the div code as well. We're going to write the stop function of jQuery right here, and we don't need this. However, we actually do need to close our function, which is going to be like this. Now if I save and refresh, we're going to get 2 buttons, animation and stop animation, just like we should. And if I click on my animation, we see that it will just slide up and slide down due to the toggle which we have right here. And so if the animation is happening and if I click on stop animation, we see that it stops right in the middle. So when we click on it, the animation just happens. If I click on stop animation, it will just go the other way. So watch this, it's going down, now it's going up. If I click on stop animation, it was on its way to close. However, if I click on animation, it will go the other way. Now let's go ahead and change this for 1 second, and let's go ahead and change stop for something called clear queue, which is self-explanatory. It clears the queue. So this method basically stops the remaining functions in the queue. Now let's save and refresh. If I click on animation, we see that it works fine. If I click on stop animation, so we see that it actually does work fine. And if I click it lots of times, so we see that it's just going to keep going however many times we clicked it. However, if I click on stop animation, it's going to finish its animation that it was on, and it will just clear the queue. So we will just start from the beginning once more. So to continue, let's go ahead and comment on height as well. And in our B1 selector, we're going to create a variable, and we'll name it div. So what we're going to do is we're going to write our $sign, and in brackets we're going to write our selector, which is the D1 div. And instead of using the D1 selector every single time, let's go ahead and just use our div variable, just like this. We'll add height to it, and let's go ahead and make it to 32 VH, and let's also add in opacity. Let's go ahead and make the opacity 0.3, and let's also go ahead and write another animation, so div animate, and we'll use the same properties. Go ahead and copy and paste. We'll go ahead and change some of the values, so let's make this into 42 VH, and let's make this into 0.8 for the opacity. Let's also go ahead and add in slow, so it will actually be a little slower. And let's go ahead and duplicate this line a couple more times. Let's change the values of the second one as well. Let's make it into 22 VH and 0.5 for opacity. And for this one, let's make it into 12 VH and 0.1 for opacity. And so let's try and get these 4 animations. Let's go ahead and save and refresh, and if I click on, and so I had made a mistake right here, you need to put a colon, just like we know, and because of that one thing my code has gone wrong, so I can go ahead and change these as well. Make sure to not make the same mistake as me, and we also need to put quotation marks for slow. Save and refresh. Now if we click on our animation button, we're gonna get our 4 animations working. So if we click on stop animation, the queue gets cleared because of this clear queue method. Let's go ahead and add another div. So right here, let's go ahead and duplicate this, and let's change it for D2. Let's change the text to hey, and let's save and refresh, and we don't have a div yet. So what we have to do is we have to first of all comment on its positions like this. We have to go ahead and add in .d2 as it is class, and let's also go ahead and add in a margin, so the margin will be 2VW. Now if I go ahead and save, refresh, if I click on animation, we see that it will only work for our D1 div and nothing will happen to our D2 div. So what we have to do is right here, so for our variable we just have to add in a comma, and we need to type in .d2. Now let's go ahead, save, refresh. We'll see that the animation will work for both, just like this. Let's go ahead and move on. What we're going to do now is we're going to create some p tags. Let's go ahead and create our p tag with the class. Let's name it intro, just for example. Close your p tag, and inside let's go ahead and type in random names like Mike. Let's duplicate it, change Mike for, let's say, Clary. Save and refresh. We're going to get our p tags right here, so Mike and Clary. Let's add some simple designs to them using CSS. So border 1px, solid and gray. Save, refresh. We're going to get something that looks a little like this. Now using JQuery selectors, let's work with 2 p tags. And now in our click, so the b1 click right here, let's go ahead and type in our p tag, so p, and using CSS let's give it some properties. So background like this, and let's make it green. Let's go ahead and save, refresh, and after clicking our button, besides getting the animations, we'll get our p tags background to be green. We can also precisely select the p elements which have the class intro, so we can do that by just typing in .intro like this. Save, refresh, click on animation. Both of their classes are intro, so they both work. We can also add in a pseudo class, which is first, which is actually self-explanatory. After clicking, only the first P tag will get the green background. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add hello to Mike. However, for the word or the name Mike, we're going to add the strong tags, which will make it bold. Just like this, we see that Mike is bold. And let's try to add background to this bold part, so a different background color in the case of a click of the button. As we see now, it's just green. So what we're going to do is something simple. We're going to add our P selector with the intro class, with the pseudo class first, which contains the strong tag. And through CSS, we'll give it a property which will be, let's say, background, comma, and let's make it, let's say, light blue. Save, refresh. If I click on my button, we see that everything is green besides Mike. The background of Mike is light blue. Let's go ahead and continue. To our second P tag, we can add title. We can give it a value which will be name, and let's duplicate it. However, let's change Clary with Susan, for example. So let's call all the elements which contain the title attribute and give them dotted borders. So what we're going to do is right after here, we're going to type in our $, and inside we're going to write square brackets, which we will write in title. So anything that contains the attribute title. And using CSS, we'll give it some properties, which I mentioned was going to be a border. So we're going to type border, we're going to write a comma, and we're going to give it its size 1 VW. We're going to make it dotted, so the type, and its color will be silver, just like this. Now let's save this, refresh, and now if we click on animation, all elements that have the attribute title get their designated CSS property, so border property, which are our Susan and Clary P tags, which contain the title attributes. We can go ahead and add to our D2 classed div title, and we can just write div. If I save and refresh, we're going to see that it will also work for our first div. Here it is one more time. So we have 3 working, as they all have title attributes. We can also specify the value of title, and we can do that by just typing in name. If they have the value name as well as the title attribute, it will get the CSS property, which are the borders. If I save and refresh, we're going to see that the div stopped working, so it stopped using the CSS design. The reason why is because its value is div and not name. We can also, instead of writing name, just write 2 letters like M and E, so the ending of name. So anything that contains the ending name as its value will get the CSS properties. So if I go ahead and change this for name1, and to actually have it working, I have to add in a $, right here to get the ending right using JQuery. And the HTML tags that should actually work is only this one, so the P class with the intro and the title of value of name, so Susan. So this one should be the only one working, the others won't. Let's go ahead and save, refresh. After clicking on our button, we'll see that we're right. Susan, so the P tag, is the only one working, as it's the only one with the ending value of ME, which we have set right here. To continue, let's say we only want the element with the title attribute and with the value starting with DI. What we can do is we can change our $ symbol with a caret symbol, which is this right here. So using Shift 6, and I'm going to type in DI. Let's save, refresh. We're going to see that the CSS property is only working for our div, as it is the only one with the value starting with DI. Now to move on, let's go ahead and create some easy lists, so UL and LI tags that we've learned way before in the past. So go ahead and create something that looks like this. Save, refresh. We're going to get our lists right here. We still have our animations and our green background with the blue background, by the way. Let's continue. Comment on this code right here, just like this. And let's go ahead and create another selector. Go ahead and type in your $, and inside of these brackets we're going to type ULLI, just like this. Using CSS, we're going to give it, let's say, background. Go ahead and type in background, comma, and let's make it yellow. So what we're doing right here is we're selecting every single LI in the ULs, and we're giving them this CSS property. Save, refresh. After clicking on our animation button, we'll get all of the LIs in the UL tags background to be yellow. We can also, using pseudo classes, select if we only want the first LIs to be yellow. We can just type in first, just like we did last time. Save, refresh. After clicking on our button, only the first one will get selected. Let's say we also want the second one to be selected as well. We're going to use the first child pseudo class, and after clicking on our button, both of them will be yellow in their backgrounds. So yeah, that was all that I had prepared for today. Thank you so much for watching.